Insert funky music here. It's the intro. Gonna do a thing. Gonna do a podcast. Yeah. I bet you Carmen's actually going to use that, and I'm going to hate him for it.
BRB UK. Worse teeth, better accents.
Hello, and indeed ahoy hoy, and welcome to this here episode 452 of BRB UK. I am Dan. I am one of your two hosts this evening. And you go, wait, what, Dan? Two hosts? What's happened to Tim? Sadly, nothing. He's joining me this week. Hello, Tim.
Hello. I thought I was going to get a week off.
Nope, sorry, mate. Much so, it would have been fun to make you do the whole rigmarole of getting set up and headphones on, mic out, which I realise is a big ask for you every week. I mean, seriously, there was like 30 weeks where you were just yelling at your computer and didn't understand why Sam wasn't going into it. So that's why I have to deal with. Little trip behind the curtain.
This is over-exaggerated than the amount of weeks where I actually have to wait for yourself or Mr. Coleman is...
Well, indeed. Yeah, there we go. But that means Coleman is not with us today. He has had some kind of work-based emergency, and in his super secret job of secretness.
Spy's got a spy, Dan.
I know. All I can assume is that he is finally getting to the bottom of this whole COVID thing. What that's me. Actually, no. What I don't know what Coleman does.
Yeah, no one knows it. Coleman doesn't know what Coleman does. It's too secret.
No, he doesn't. Which is terrifying, really.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we'll talk about video games.
We should.
That's what we're going to do. This is a video game podcast. So, let's. Timothy, I understand you have been playing a game.
I have. I thought, video game podcast, might play a video game here and there.
And this is one called Cotton Reboot! !
Well, and to give the original game its full, slightly confusing title, I believe it's Cotton... something about nights.
Isn't it Magical Night Dreams Cotton?
Fantastic Night Dreams Cotton, I believe? Or
Cotton, Fantastic Night Dreams. Take me back to a wonderful world when I was but 12 years old.
I believe that is the full title.
Nice.
But yeah, this is the one we're dealing with at the moment is a game called Cotton Reboot, and it's a re-release of a game I'd never heard of before.
Because I must admit...
with good reason.
I Googled this.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? First of all, the game looks certifiable, as in it's just odd.
Well, okay.
And I mean that in a nice way.
Let's describe it for the nice listeners at home, especially if you're not seeing any game footage alongside in the video kind of thing. Yeah, basically, Cotton, the titular name of the game, is a witch.
Right.
And it's described as a cute-em-up, which is an expression I hadn't really come across before, but apparently that is a subgenre of the shoot-em-up series.
Really?
And
isn't it just a subgenre? Isn't it just put M-up after anything? Like
M-up, yes.
M-up, like I could have a spam-em-up, for example.
I'm guessing there was
I'm
series
forcibly inserting spam into things.
Yeah, I'm guessing there was a series of cute mascot-driven shoot-em-up games that became their own cute-em-ups.
Booze 'em up is drink yourself into oblivion. Listeners, tell you what, topic for this week's discussion on the Discord. What other something ups would you like to see? And what would the gameplay loop consist of?
It's very much in the vein of old school arcade scrolling shoot 'em ups. In the kind of R-type, Gradius kind of vein of things. But rather than flying a little spaceship, you're a witch on a broomstick, firing out magic. And this has the rebooted version, which contains new hand-drawn HD graphics in a kind of nice style and looks kind of crisp and good. But it also contains one of the original versions.
Right.
And I say one of the original versions because I assumed it was the arcade version. And I'll come back to that a bit later, but it was not.
Right.
I don't know if the number X6800 means anything to you, Dan.
Well, I've got a feeling that is referring to the central processing unit in one of Sharp's mid-80s computers.
Yes.
Or 90s
We'll come back to
computers,
that in a minute. I assumed it was an arcade board without any other knowledge going in.
I think you'll find it's referring to the Motorola 68000 processor contained within it.
Yeah, and a Sharp console that I'd never heard of. So this kind of, we'll get into it now, but this led to this was a game I'd never heard of, but kind of game that I want an example of this game, and I've been looking out for an example of this sort of game that I thought would be good quality to play on the Switch, because I just think it's a really good fit, basically. And I haven't found one that I've come across that's been on the shop. This one, and I should have pointed this out at the top of the thing, but I was sent a review code to review this. But it's a game that I jumped on because I'd never heard of it before. But that's led me to the knowledge of a console I'd never heard of before. The X6800, which only ever came out in Japan, made by Sharp. Had a back catalogue of awesome games by the looks of things.
I hate to be a dickhead, it's technically a computer. Yep. I know consoles are technically computers as well, but this was fully fledged.
No, it's more of a home computer that was released in Japan, basically. I guess, was the PC Engine kind of alongside the same thing, or is that something slightly different?
Something slightly different.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, so this was a console I'd never heard of before that had a back catalogue of fairly awesome games, and this obviously was one of them at some point. I'd heard that the actual some of the ports of the arcade version of this didn't live up to the arcade version, and that may be one of the reasons why the game kind of died off a bit, basically.
Okay.
That said, it has come out in various guises and various forms over the years. I think the only time it's been released in the UK was on the Neo Geo Pocket back in the 90s.
Okay.
But other than that, it's had one release in North America, I think, and other than that, it's been fairly contained to Japan. So it's something that we haven't really seen before. The arcade never left Japan before. So, it was something we hadn't seen. And, playing through the original game and then playing through the new one really helps you appreciate the difference of what they've done to bring the new game up to date, basically. And it's not just that they've polished the graphics, they have actually refined some of the game mechanics to make it a new and more interesting game. That's not to say that the X6800 version isn't without its charm. It does feel like an old arcade game, and it felt to me like an arcade port, and that felt accurate kind of thing. But when you're, especially at the beginning of the game, as you progress through the game, you kind of level up your weaponry, and it kind of, you get better. You get experience for collecting crystals as you go, and that helps you level up. But the kind of experience curve on the new version of the game is much more satisfying and much more rewarding than it was in the old one. The old version, it feels a bit kind of, the basic weapon, especially to start with, feels a bit pea-shootery. It feels like you're just kind of spitting things at someone kind of thing. Whereas on the new one, it's got a much nicer sort of visceral feel to it in to start with. But then, whereas in the original version, by the end of the game, you're kind of powered up to the point where you feel like you're shooting quite well, and it gives you bombs that add to things that shoot things at the bottom of the screen for you as well. And that kind of levels up to a point where you feel reasonably powerful. In the new version of the game, you go from feeling reasonably powerful at the start to feeling like an unstoppable, wave of chaos that's emanating from you as you go, basically. There's... In both the original game and this game, there's 7 different levels. The story of the game is crazy, and fortunately, because it's a game you probably want to play through a few times, because it's quite quick to play through, and there's rankings and stuff, which I'll come back to in a sec. But basically, it's all it's all kind of themed around these 7 different coloured willow. And I don't know, I thought Willow was going to be wood. She's a witch. I thought she might be getting like Willow and like Willow.
Whoa. So you thought this was a game about a young witch hoping to get some wood.
I'm not going there, Dan.
All right,
I'm not going down that path. But yes, kind of.
You disappoint me.
But Willow is apparently candy.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, apparently fine. 7 different coloured sweets that you're trying to collect to make it into a mega sweet. But yeah, right. Basically, you're Cotton
better
the
than
witch.
Taking 7 different kinds of wood to make a mega chode. Let's face it.
There's a fairy companion that kind of guides you through the game and may or may not chief you up about the whole Willow stuff. But they're kind of saying, oh no, if you collect the 7 Willow, then it's going to add up to this big Willow. And then, yeah, like as you go through the game, that's a slight mechanic as well. Throughout the levels, I can't remember if this was in the original version, but definitely in the new one, throughout the levels, you can free little helpers that actually, little fairy helpers that help you destroy things around you and are really helpful when things are attacking you from behind.
That's probably why they call them helpers, because they're helping you out, mate.
Well, yeah, but yeah, that's quite good. But you have to kind of like rescue them by destroying something that's captured them or like something else throughout the level. So there's certain enemies that you'll destroy that will release them, and then you can have up to 6 different helpers with you. You've also got like various different magic spells that you can only sort of trigger in the sequence that you pick them up, but you can pick up to 6 of them up. And as you're going through the level, there's these various different crystals that enemies drop that you don't want to pick up immediately and they work slightly differently between the 2 games. And again, this is a mechanic that they changed quite drastically between the 2, but makes a big difference and actually makes it a bit more tactical and stuff like that. But there's basically when you are sort of powering up things, there's the crystals that are throughout the level that, as I said, you don't want to pick up. But as you shoot them, they become worth more money. And in the new version, as you shoot through them, they actually change the ammo or, change the what you're firing at the enemies. So if you shoot through a crystal that you've powered up a bit, it will hurt the enemies more as well as just going it might split it or make it go into other things. So if you get a whole load of crystals on screen and then fire through those crystals at a crowd of enemies, it will do a lot more damage and do lots of different types of damage as well, basically. Also, the different colours of crystals that you pick up will power up your different magic spells. And you can go from like level 1 to level 3 on the magic spells, and say there's one magic spell where you'll just cast out a flame dragon in front of you, and it will destroy a line of things in front of you. When you've built that up from level 1 to level 3, instead of doing 1 dragon, it will do 3 dragons that you can vary the position of as you're flying up and down the screen, basically.
Now, this all sounds like something that could visually get out of control pretty quickly and make it a little difficult to actually work out what the bejesus is going on.
It does a bit.
Right.
Like it's a bit of a light bullet hell sort of. It's not really, like in the bullet hell stuff,
if you will.
Permanently like stuff on screen you're dodging, and there is collections of stuff and clusters of fire that you have to kind of weave and dodge your way through. Even more so when encountering some bosses and stuff like that, they'll have attacks that you have to dodge in that way. But it's not like I've seen a lot worse in terms of that. It's like you want to be concentrating on dodging stuff and just shooting the whole time, basically. And then it's a question of when you trigger your magic spells. And in the new version of the game, they've given you a thing called Fever Mode as well, where your bar builds up, and then you trigger it. If you get hit by an enemy, it stops that bar. But otherwise, it's just on a time period. And that really boosts your score. You get if you've got some crystals on screen that you're firing through at that point while doing that and putting magic spells doing stuff, you'll power up your crystals. You can pick up those crystals and they'll go to their final form, and that will give you a massive multiplier. But then also, you can sort of juggle your score that way. In the old school version of the game, the crystals didn't stay in the middle of the screen like they do in the new version. These kind of bob up and down, so it makes it easier. The old crystals, you had to kind of juggle as you were going through the thing. Also, there's some parts of the game in the older version that felt like it was an old coin-guzzling arcade game type of thing. Bits of geometry that messed you up, that you could get stuck behind. Enemies that felt a bit cheap that were coming from behind you and stuff like that. And there's still a little bit of that in the new version of the game because they haven't changed the layout of the game particularly. But they have given you a bit more to deal with those sorts of things, and there's a bit less of the geometry sticking out to snag you and kind of lead to different things. There's also a variety of different difficulty levels. Like there's your standard kind of 3 difficulty levels on the main game. On the X68000 version, they've got it's normal, hard, hardest. You do, which is one I haven't tried yet because I haven't done, even though it said you do. I don't know what that means. And then Beep Ed, which I assume is Beep Edition, which is one of the developers, basically. In the rankings,
a bleepy swear,
possibly. But yeah, there's different rankings for all those, for the different modes and the different levels that you're in. There's also a 2 and 5 minute time attack thing that you can rank in as well. I got kind of, I think I've been bitten already by the bug of trying to improve my ranking scores and stuff like that. Like, I started at like 2,000 and something. I think I've got my main game one into the top, like, I haven't really been back to that since normal mode for like 250. But I got my hard mode into the top 100 in the world, which I was quite pleased with. And on the Beep edition, on the old school version of the game, I was 39th in the world at one point. So
well done, you, Tim.
I think I've gone down into the 40s since. But yeah, like it's exactly the type of game I was looking for, even though I've never played this game before. And it's also a really good example of a good way to update an old game while still giving you access to the old game so you can appreciate the difference.
Right.
And yeah, I quite like the rankings. The one thing I haven't checked, Dan, can you check how much it is for me, please?
Money's out of monies.
Because, as we know on the Switch, once you've got a game, you can't see how much it costs. So just check how much it was on the Switch.
I believe it's... hang on. Talk amongst yourselves.
Because that's one thing. If you don't like the game, there's not going to be much reason to replay it. Like if you don't like it through the first time,
£34.99.
You can get better at the game. There's also I think some limited edition like box versions and stuff as well that aren't that much more than that as well. I would say
35 quid sounds a bit steep for something that might be a bit niche.
Yes, and I think that's one of the things where it is a slightly niche audience type thing. I would say if you're into these type of shooting games and shoot 'em up type things and you knew what a shoot 'em up was before I was speaking about it, I would say this is a good example of rebooting a game that you might not have seen on these shores before. So yeah, there's hopefully a few hardcore shoot 'em up gamers out there that might not have heard of this that might be of interest to it. But I think you're only really going to get your money's worth out of this game if the idea of playing for ranking appeals to you, basically. Because, yeah, like, it's not the longest game. As I said, it's 7 levels of an arcade game. The last one is literally, the last level is literally just a long boss fight. It probably takes an hour and a half, maybe a couple of hours maximum to kind of play through the whole thing. And yeah, it's really how much you're going to get the value for it for playing through it again and again and going for high ranking scores. That said, I have really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I've got access to it. Even as it stands, though, with me really enjoying it, I don't know that I would pay $34.99 for a similar game in the future. I would definitely jump on it for half that price, but Yeah, it's a bit steep unless you're really into it, and if you are really into it, you might want to buy the physical version because it sounds like it's not that much more money anyway, basically. But
I mean, it sounds like a game that's in desperate need of a demo, maybe.
Yeah, and it'd be a good one to stick out, and maybe put the first level on there somewhere for people to try as well, and then you get more people in the rankings on that and get them interested in that as well. But yeah, if that is of half interest to you, then definitely look out for it in a sale and pick it up when it's a bit cheaper because it's just an interesting game that, as I said, it was one I hadn't heard of before, but I'm glad that I've played and it was has fulfilled something that I was looking for. I don't know about you, I remember a lot of arcade games of a similar ilk that I played just randomly back in the day, but I couldn't tell you a name of a single one of them. Other than the ones that have survived and we know about, like R-Type and Gradius, that kind of
UN Squadron, that
every
kind
now
of
and
stuff.
Again. But yeah. As I said, I've had a lot of fun with it to the point where I can see me dipping back into this to go, I'll have another go on the 2-minute mode and see if I can improve my ranking score. And possibly doing that for a while going forward and not necessarily playing it for massive periods when I go in, but just dipping in and out of it again for a sustained period going forward. So, yeah.
Nice.
Anyway,
Jobs are good.
Interesting game that led me to a knowledge of a console I'd never heard of before.
Not a console, Timothy. We've had words about this already. Jesus. Will you never learn?
No,
never. You won't. Never.
But I am actually really interested to hear your game this week, Mr. Dan.
Righty-ho. So, this week, I have been mostly playing The Ascent. Now, this is a game that was featured in Xbox's recent showcase. And straight up front, I have to say, this is a review of The Ascent using a review code kindly provided by the publishers Curve Digital. So, straight up, this is a game I had the opportunity to play without any kind of financial hit on myself. But it is available, and I believe as of the time of recording, on Game Pass. And you can pick that up either on Xbox or on the PC as well. So I've primarily played it on Xbox, although I did give the PC version a very quick look in as well. So The Ascent is a kind of a top, it's not quite top down, it's like 3/4 isometric, dual stick shooting bit of goodness, or so it hopes. And the big kind of appeal of this game to me is one that's kind of largely based on its visuals and its atmosphere. It's set in a cyberpunk world, and frankly, it absolutely nails that the atmosphere. The kind of the cyberpunk world it evokes is one that very much kind of echoes Blade Runner, both in terms of the visuals and the music, but also kind of the slightly grotty aspects of cyberpunk in terms of in a way that kind of a lot of the 2000 AD comics managed to do back in the day. Almost kind of like that Fifth Element kind of underworld aspect to it as well. And it absolutely nails that because visually it's such an absorbing game. And they've set up a wonderful universe to play about in. So the basic story is it's the future, evil mega corporations own all of the things, including you. And you are like one of many other people trying to buy your way out of poverty by being an indent, and that's short for being indentured to a big company who allow you to live where you live by, essentially you do work for them and you are the company's property. You will have to do whatever they ask you to do.
It's the way we're going, Dan.
It's the way we're going. It's the way we're going. And kind of the Ascent itself is like a tiered mega city with, surprise, surprise, the very richest live on the top and the very poorest live on the bottom. And it quite explicitly calls that out in the game as well. Like your kind of little robot, your little robot AI sidekick will kind of say, hey, look, we're literally going up in the world. The air quality is a lot fresher and people are probably going to live longer because they live in fresher air. So the whole game starts off with you initially essentially trying to sort out a maintenance problem, the lowest levels of the arcology, which is what the Ascent, the kind of the big tool megacity the Ascent Corporation owned. And after you've done that tutorial mission, which teaches you the very basics about how you interact with the environment, how to use your guns, this, that, the other, blah, 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 all the usual fare, kind of the game pivots into kind of the mega corporation that owns the city. Its AI has declared it bankrupt. So all of you indents don't know where your next paycheck's come from, or indeed what your future might hold. And it's all about that. Kind of the plot is all about kind of the pivoting of that, about who is now in charge. Is it kind of like going to be a bottom-up insurrection led by the workers, or is it going to be top-down, kind of all these execs and these people who've got far more money than they ever need trying to maintain their position? So it's quite a nice setup, a nice environmental setup. And, you know, it really gets that kind of unpleasant note bang on. And it does feel like you are, you know, very much an underdog in this world, trying to fight your way out of the terrible situation which you were effectively born into. So yeah, and, you know, from that point of view, it's a wonderful setting. It's a wonderful potential sandbox to play about in. But it doesn't quite land it past that, sadly. I mean, this is a game that kind of almost bills itself as kind of a Diablo-esque shoot-'em-up with some kind of procedural in-game events, you know, a bit like how... you know, remember back when Left 4 Dead first came out, like the kind of the AI director of the game, which would kind of schedule and set up events to kind of match how you were doing in the game. And you know, the devs of this game very much, you know, the Neon Giant very much wants that to be the case for this particular game. And if you have a listen to their interview on Xbox's YouTube channel, like, they kind of allude to that, but it's not quite as fancy as it sounds. So let's take this bit by bit. So the Diablo comparisons, to an extent, are fair. You shoot people, sometimes sparkly loot drops out. Doesn't happen very often. And whilst there are a number of different weapons you come across in the game, like, your upgrades to those weapons are kind of completely set and centralized. If you upgrade a weapon at the gunsmith, all instances of that weapon will, from that point forward, have those stats. So it's not like you can get a randomly rolled weapon that might have kind of a slightly unusual perk, or, you know, be really powerful in some respects, not the other. So I think they kind of missed a trick there. And there's a bit more variety with the armor that drops in terms of the stats it will buff or not. So that's kind of okay. And there are the, you know, there is kind of permanent stat upgrades that you level up your character. As you do that, you get stat points. You can invest in certain things to suit your playstyle. And of course, being a cyberpunk game, it wouldn't be a cyberpunk game without augmentations and all of that stuff. But again, they don't feel as game changing as they possibly could. So then to kind of come on to like the director, the smart, a kind of event setting guts of the game. The problem is that they've tried hard to do stuff to make this different, like having a cover system to try and introduce some strategy. The cover system doesn't really work. It's not automatic in any way. You have to press B to crouch, and visually it doesn't really signpost where the bits of cover are. You kind of discover them by accident. And there's this other mechanic where you can like raise your gun up, where you're more likely to shoot people in the head and stun them. But again, it doesn't really seem to make that much of a difference to me. And because the kind of the viewport of the game is all intents and purposes fixed for you as the player. I mean, it will, the camera angle does change, but that's all set in stone. You know, as you go into certain areas, it will rotate a little bit. But it's very zoomed in, which means you can often be getting shot from enemies that are off the screen. And especially if it decides to just randomly roll a kind of an ambush, like enemies will just literally appear out of nowhere. I mean, true, they like open a door or they crawl up the underside of a bridge that you're on, but you don't really get any warning that that's about to be the case, and that can become quite frustrating. And the AI is kind of all right, but generally, the enemies that you come across, if you go a certain distance from where they spawn, they'll just instantly lose interest in you and go back to their own business. So it's a shame.
To ask a question, AI, you're talking enemies there.
Enemies,
when you're playing single player, does it populate, like, because it's 2 to 4 player co-op? Is there a team of people that are with you as AI, or is it just you?
No, it's just you, and
okay.
You know, I there hasn't been enough of an install base to try that out online. Hopefully, there will be when it gets off the ground with Xbox Game Pass. But
because this is one I pre-installed because I was really looking forward to it because it looks really good and I like the look of it. Do you think it's something? Because I've heard, I haven't read a review, but I just saw come up on Twitter like the review byline, and it said something about being overly ambitious, so I'm guessing they thought similarly to you. But is it something that you think can be saved from what they've got? Like, is there enough there to warrant further development time that might, you know, iron out some of the kinks and make it a bigger, better game? Or do you think it's confined by its limitations?
I think some of the limitations it has. I mean, it's still a fantastic experience. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
It looks stunning, and if you want to experience, you know, an amazing universe for a game like this is a great thing to check out. For all its aspirations, the gameplay gets repetitive quickly, and I'm a bit surprised they didn't lean more heavily into the looting, randomized loot side of things. That seemed like an absolute no-brainer to me. I mean, you do as your character progresses, you kind of your kind of cybernetic deck gets improved, and you are able to interact with more things, hack more things in the environment. But again, it doesn't really do a great deal.
I don't think I'm going to let you get away with cybernetic deck.
Cybernetic
deck. That one out like it's
cybernetic
a normal
deck,
thing.
And you can. So, I'm not South African. It's not cybernetic deck, which is what they would say in that neck of the woods. But yeah, it's a game. In short, I really want to love this game. I really want to.
Well,
and
I'm up for playing some co-op if you're interested to see if that sprinkles some more magic on it.
Some cybernetic magic dust on my cybernetic deck. Yes, indeed.
Also, I have another question, Dan. It's a cyberpunk game.
Yes.
Does that mean, like, are there any cars falling from the sky? Or, you know, does your gun fall through the ceiling? Are there any game-breaking bugs? Like, that's the cyberpunk experience that I'm used to now.
Sadly not. I mean, all of the large objects crashing into other large objects are entirely planned and part of the story. But yeah, no, there's nothing massively game-breaking. Load times are surprisingly slow, however, actually. Even on Series X with the protected drive. I'm not quite sure.
I'm getting less forgiving about those sorts of things, but hey.
Yeah, a lot of texture and model popping, which is odd. Which is very odd.
Yeah.
And I encountered that both the Xbox and the PC. The PC looks a bit shinier. It's got lots of ray tracing goodness going on, so it kind of makes it even more atmospheric. But it does make your graphics card go bonkers.
See, I'm planning on playing this on my S, so...
you'll be fine at 1080p. You'll be all right. But look, you know, I would say it's a solid... If I had to...
had to give it a grade.
If I had to give it a grade, look, my barrel is slightly over half full. How's that?
Ooh, yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
I think the fairest way to say it is that it can talk the talk, but it can't walk the walk.
That is a shame, Dan, because I preloaded that months ago. It's been taking up 18 gigs on my hard drive for ages for no reason.
Look, I
am going to play it, and I am interested in playing it in co-op and seeing what it's like. But it's worth checking out at least for a bit. Put it that way. But yeah.
I certainly wouldn't if I didn't have.
You're
Game
not rushing
Pass.
back to it, basically.
No. If I didn't have Game Pass, I wouldn't go out to purchase it at the moment.
Ooh.
Which is a shame because it could be great, but sadly not quite.
Well, I
I'd
still
love to
have
love
some
it.
hope that I can enjoy this and hopefully enjoy it with you maybe at some time if you'll stomach it. But yeah, and maybe, as I said, maybe it's something they can fix some of those issues over time. Hopefully, maybe
It'd be nice if they did. If they did. I mean, look, it's at the end of the day, considering like the artistic achievement this small studio has achieved. I think there's only like 11 of them. What they've been able to achieve with those kind of resources is pretty incredible, and that artistic direction should really be applauded because they've done a phenomenal job. It's just that sadly, the rest of the game doesn't quite hit.
Gameplay doesn't back it up at the moment.
Unfortunately. Sorry.
Yeah.
Have I ruined Christmas again?
Yeah, possibly, Dan.
Excellent.
I was planning on playing that like tonight and tomorrow.
Sorry, mate.
But
But you can still play it. No one's stopping you.
I'm going to.
Right,
you might be wrong.
Jeez. Well, or I might be right and you might be wrong. Who knows? Or we could both have different opinions and that might be okay. Anyway, that's what we've played this week, assuming you haven't played anything else.
No. I think we discussed everything else I was playing in and around that this week. And I've just been playing Cotton Reboot. I did play Gloomhaven for the first time since pre-lockdown, as now my Gloomhaven group are double jabbed, plus a couple of weeks, and it's summer, so we can have the windows open and stuff.
Lovely.
So, yeah, we actually got a game of Gloomhaven, so I was quite pleased with that. I also might have another board game to talk about on the podcast in a future week, but we'll come to that in the future.
Very exciting. That's why it's in the future week, because it's not now, it's in the future. Right, so I suppose we ought to talk a little bit about what's going on in the news. What's new this week? Will be old next week, but this week it's new. And look, I'm just going to go and get it. I'm going to go
somewhat because it's a bit old now as well, because it happened the same time we were recording last week.
Well, actually, I was going to start with the continuing disappointing news. So we could end on a slightly higher note about new video games, all right?
Fine.
So,
yeah. I've got one thing that came up earlier today to just squeeze in at the end as well. So
yeah, okay. Well, you can pop that into the best of your ability, Tim.
Yes.
So we talked last week about the shenanigans that have been going on within the Activision group of companies, and it's specifically centered around Activision Blizzard. Now, for those of you who don't know what's been going on, there's been a lot of allegations from a state-sponsored investigation looking at kind of discriminatory, or that has the outcomes of that investigation have alleged discriminatory sexist practices. Very, very bad employment practices. Not watching their employees back, and kind of and lots of kind of getting people to shutting people up so they don't complain and just try and make them all get on with it and accept it, which is entirely wrong. Activision had said something that this unelected bunch of government representatives, they're responsible for driving business out of California, which is like, all right, so making money is more important than looking after the mental health of your employees, is it? Which they have then, Bobby Kotick has now said that response was tone deaf. However, a large number of employees staged a walkout on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. And that's kind of where we're we're picking up, and you're like, even more shocking practices have come to the fore. And again, perhaps we're just lucky because we work in the UK, but like things like forced arbitration, that if you have an issue with your workplace, you are mandated to have a company appointed individual negotiate the terms of what's okay on your behalf, which is clearly not transparent or open in any way whatsoever. So yeah, I mean, Tim, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I mean, I'm glad that it's coming to a head, and these things. I'm not glad that it's had to come to a head. Don't get me wrong. I don't. That's not me condoning the conditions that this action is in response to, because I think companies absolutely ought to be called out on this. But yeah, be interested to hear your thoughts.
I will say again, we are not well placed to discuss this with any sort of direct line to anyone we know in the company or with any other authority to which we speak to what's happening and how that influences people. Just a bit more prevalent last week where there was 3 white guys, but it's no different when there's 2 white guys talking about it. We are not well qualified to necessarily talk about this subject. However, as we said last week, we still find it necessary to at least mention it and sort of discuss it. That said, again, there are other people that have discussed it in much greater length and have looked at things. I did go away, and I'm trying to remember the name of the actual series of videos because it's something I've looked at before, but there's a guy that breaks down the legal side of things. Virtually legal or legal virtually...
Phoenix Wright in real life.
Virtual Legality, I think, is the name of the channel or the series of videos that I watched. And it's basically, it was an 1.5-hour documentary going through what the state of California had filed against Activision Blizzard, what it meant, what the implications of it were, and kind of some of the stuff like that. So if you want to go in full depth, you can go and look at those things, and I have done so myself. So I know some things, but I won't pretend that I can speak to it with the level of authority and level of discussion that I've listened to myself. So I advise you to go and listen to that if that's something you want to look at. But yeah, it's one of those things where I think a lot of the problems of Activision Blizzard are not necessarily unique to them or video games, but are a function of the way we operate large companies in a capitalist economy, basically. Like, unchecked capitalism is not what we kind of have. There are rules and regulations in place, but there still seems to be an erosion of those rights from what we have, and a non-shoring up of those things for a lot of people that are, more in the firing line for this than Dan or I and other people. Minorities, women, everything else. I don't know that we can necessarily, as I say, speak with any authority on individually what's going on. The one thing I will say that I haven't heard other people comment on is that one way or the other, whether they were unaware of this happening or whether they had a corporate policy of sweeping it under the rug, you cannot justify to me how Bobby Kotick deserves his bonuses for every year that this has happened. No. And it seems to have been going back for a number of years, and a number of things, not necessarily all swept under the rug. They did say that some person was fired, the person that was involved in some of the nastier side of things that we heard last week had been fired, and had been fired for that reason by the sounds of things. But yeah. It's obvious that the employees of the company are not happy with the response and are not happy with the situation as it stands. I don't think that's necessarily unique to Activision Blizzard, as I said, but that doesn't mean that they're wrong.
Look, I think any large corporation, the challenge becomes that people who invest in the company and ultimately it's the board of directors that agrees whether or not the CEO should get a big old bonus. What they see is share price.
Yes.
And
that's all they care about, and that's what affects Bobby Kotick's bonuses, not how well they treat the staff.
Not all investors will just look at the share price. A lot of them may take, I would hope they take other things into account. And if a company was engaging in practices that kind of undermined, the basic personal and civil liberties of individuals who work for them, then that company's probably more
profitable, and an investor is more likely to invest in them. That's the reality of the world.
It could go either way. I would hope a conscientious investor would go, do you know what? I don't want to make my money that way. Thank you very much.
Yeah, unfortunately, conscientious investors either don't exist very much or don't last very long.
Well, indeed. Well, I mean, look, we're not here to discuss the moral implications of ideologies, but all I would say is that I think you're right. The onus is on the company to keep its own house in order, and that isn't just protecting their shareholders. That is protecting the people who work so hard to make that company a success. And these individuals should be rewarded for that. They should not, have any aspect of their personal lives used as a chain around their neck, or a reason not to advance them through the career that they want to follow. All of that is just nonsense. The fact that that those values aren't held dear by a company, and I would find it very difficult to work for a company that continues to do that.
But for me, right, fundamentally, we used to have a thing in society where there were three sides to a company. You had the company itself, you had the employees, and you had the customers. And when you enter a fourth side, that's not as strong, and especially when the fourth side is unequal and everything flows in the direction of the shareholders that have no grounding or kind of reason to care about the employees or the company. They don't care about either of those things. All they care about is getting an ever-increasing return on their investment. It's not a good way to run a world, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, any ideology taken to its extreme is not good.
Right, yeah, but right, for example, part of the real world problems that come about because of the way you have to run your company in the way the structure and everything you're doing. For example, they had to issue the crap statement they issued. They had to issue a statement downplaying the claims of the I can't remember the thing, but the claims made by the state of California. They had to do that. If they did not do that, their shareholders would turn around and go, why the hell didn't you do that? Why the hell didn't you get out in front of that and say it's a bad thing? They had to do that for their shareholders, or their shareholders would hold them to account for not doing that. But when they make that statement, rightly, and I'm not saying it's the employees are wrong to do it, they are very within their rights to say, hold on, that's because it is. But at the same time, they have to do that because that's the way the company works, and that's the way the legality of the situation works. If they didn't issue that sort of statement straight afterwards, they look guilty, basically, and that's the way the world works, kind of thing. So, I'm not saying they were right to issue that statement. I'm just saying that that's the way the world works, unfortunately, and I wish it didn't work that way.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is that if a company truly cared about its employees, and companies, like individuals, we all make mistakes, but it's what you do about those mistakes and how you learn from those mistakes that is important. And if they were keeping on top of this, it should never have got to this stage because they should have corrected the root issues at hand here.
But for many years, Activision Blizzard have proved time and time again that they don't care about the majority of the employees in the same way that a lot of other companies, large and small in this industry, they regularly let go of whole swathes of developers and stuff because they've outlived their usefulness. They did that within the pandemic in years where they were making record-breaking amounts of money, and Bobby Kotick was taking a massive millions and millions of pounds in bonuses. And that's fine with everyone, apparently.
Well, look, I think I'd imagine the situation will continue to develop. The only thing one can hope is that something positive comes out from a very bright light being shone on all of this, and that's all one can hope for. Yeah, and hopefully the letter with the staff of Activision Blizzard put out that was saying that, kind of in response to Bobby Kotick's statement, saying that they didn't deal with some of the core issues that they wanted dealt with regarding employment and human resources and a few other things. But it's, I don't know, that's something where it seems like a bit of a watershed moment. They seemed like they were not going to be backing down from this, from the wording of that thing, and I really hope that's the case. There does seem to be a groundswell of support of people not covering their games, of other developers speaking out as well, and I hope that's the case. I hope this leads to something not just for Activision Blizzard, but for the industry as a whole, possibly as well. And maybe this is the place to start. But anything we can do to support that is good. I mean, one hopes that they will do the right thing of their own accord rather than responding to blips in share price. I hope they remember the humans in all of this, that they don't just look at the bottom line, and that, okay, sometimes the right thing is not the most profitable thing, but, the right thing should always win out, in my humble opinion. But perhaps that's what makes me a filthy liberal. I don't know. So, unfortunately, I'm not sure that, massive rampant capitalism actually allows people to entertain the idea of doing that, basically. I know. Money, 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 money! Money! The other thing I was just going to mention... Oh, no, sorry, we've still got to do the whole EA Play thing quickly. Yeah, we are going to do it. We will do it quickly, though, Timothy. Yeah, very quickly. Yeah, EA Play There wasn't much to it, in my opinion. A lot of people were quite pleased with it. It was quite well presented. It was quite well paced. It was quite well done as a presentation. I just didn't think, for me personally, there was very much exciting news that came out of it. But, mate, Dead Space being remade, hello! That was so heavily rumoured that if they hadn't have done that, it would have been disappointing, and they didn't really tell us anything other than maybe it was a Dead Space. Oh crap, everyone's really expecting to do this. Can we just knock something together in Blender for a bit? Was it Motive that were making it, I believe? Yes. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, but look, I mean, I think Motive have done some great work in remastering stuff before, I believe, and I think this is getting the full HDR ray tracing goodness. And on a game like Dead Space, where kind of getting the atmosphere right is so, no pun intended, atmosphere right is so important. I think this could be a great game, and if you haven't played it before, this will be brilliant. Well, they did say something where I'm not sure whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, but they did say they were enhancing gameplay. I must say I haven't gone back and played the original Dead Space for a while. It may not have aged as well. But I remember it being a clunky kind of Resident Evil style shooter. I mean, it was very deliberately paced, and I think part of the, it was very intentionally designed that you didn't feel like you're a super soldier who could pirouette on 180 and shoot the man's in the face. It was all about deliberate movement and, kind of making you aware that you're wearing a big hulking metal engineer's suit and kind of trying to navigate the world in which you're in. And look, I love Dead Space. Well, I love Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2. Dead Space 3,
See, I like Dead Space 3 more than other people did.
Where you're wrong.
More of a shooter, more of a co-op shooter, less of a horror game, and I'm happy with that.
So up next is something that I thought looked quite fun, although it might be one of these things that looks really good on paper, but might not be quite so good in actuality, is Battlefield Portal.
I mean, I was just disappointed because it wasn't Battlefield with Portals. I was like, it was EA crossover. That'll be good. But no.
Well, it
Portals.
is kind of a crossover between the various eras of Battlefield. So you can have your 1942 Battle of the Bulge heroes going up against, people from Battlefield 3, Battlefield 2042, which sounds like an absolute blooming nightmare to try and balance out. But you too could gun down robot tanks in a Spitfire.
Could take a knife to a defibrillator fight.
You could make defibrillators. That was my jam in Bad Company, I believe. I'm not going to go too much into excruciating detail, but it's like a Battlefield greatest hits, and then layered on top of that are some quite interesting things that allow you to set very granular rules in the game. It's a bit like kind of some of the programming tutorial interfaces you see on like a Raspberry Pi, where you can say, all right, if
a bit like Halo Forge, was it? Or was
well,
that
even more so? It's a bit like you could do it if you get a kill with this particular weapon, then you get this buff, or this changes that changes how the world is, how you interact with the world, or sets this event in the world off. So there is potential for really kind of quite
dynamic
interesting
kind of
experiences
events
to be put together, and you're going to be able to share those just via a URL. So, make it super easy for people to share these things. And that sounds like it could be really good fun. So, I mean, they obviously haven't shared many massive details, but there's all kinds of interesting stuff that could be done, like new rules that for the individual or for the world, or changing certain conditions, or you could really make it so that you kind of incentivize a certain play style in the game mode you put together. So, hey, look, that looks fun.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that put me off personally. Just one, there's no single player content; it's all multiplayer. And yeah, the other thing I don't understand is how they're not doing a free-to-play type model on this to go up against Call of Duty. I don't understand why they're still trying to sell this game at a full-price game, which seems to be the angle they're going from what they seem to indicate. But yeah. Anyway, I don't want to put anyone's chips, like each their own. I know Bleezy would be very excited about this. It looks like it's probably delivering some good things for people that like this type of thing. I can see how it would be fun, just maybe not for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, but I think that isn't this within Battlefield 2042? So this is bundled in with Battlefield 2042, is my understanding.
I think it's just. Yeah, but I don't know exactly how that's working, because I heard it doesn't. Is what they showed just all multiplayer, and there is some single player component to the game?
This is
complaining that it was just all multiplayer, basically.
Well, I mean, so they describe it as, and this is from their own website, Battlefield Portal is a community-driven platform within Battlefield 2042 that will let you create and find fantastic experiences made by the series' creative and passionate community.
But does Battlefield 2042 have any single-player component to it?
I would imagine it probably does.
Okay. I'd heard it didn't.
But if it doesn't, that sucks. Maybe it doesn't. Nope. Doesn't. Nope.
So, yeah.
Sad face.
Yeah.
Although I still think you can do bot matches. I think you can...
Oh, right, yes. That's it. That's one thing I was like, okay. That actually sounds like at least I could go in and train and get up to speed on the geometry of the levels and stuff like that. So
and they're trying to talk a big talk about how good their bots are, that you won't be able to tell that they're any different from live human players. I mean, presumably they just teabag you into oblivion.
Yeah, well, that's a bad thing then. Because I want them to be worse than human players.
Yeah. So I'm sure you can set them to dumbass mode anyway. So what else was there? And we'll do these super quick. There was Grid Legends.
See, that did actually look interesting. It's a game that, I thought had fallen off. Like, we hadn't heard much of Grid in recent years. They do seem to be cramming some story stuff into it, which I don't really see the point of. It was a very arcade racing game. I don't really need it stuffed with story. Thank you very much. But I guess it makes it separate. It's, a very EA move as well, to do so. So, yeah.
I mean, it strikes me that they've looked at a bit of the open world goodness that you see in your Forza Horizons, and maybe they've just gone, we fancy a little bit of that. And it's been a while since we've done a Need for Speed, and I don't think people have quite forgiven us for the last couple of those games. So let's do something with Grid instead.
Yeah. I liked the previous Grids. It was a real kind of had a kind of gritty, kind of very. I'm trying to use a word that isn't visceral, but it kind of like you felt very in the moment and very kind of like, everything was on top of you, and it was quite, had an arcadey oppressive feel almost kind of thing. Like, I liked it I liked the previous series as a game, so that coming back is good. The other one that was a bit random, but was on there was Lost in Random. Which,
see what you did there, Tim. Very good.
Yeah. I think I should like this game more than I do from what I've seen so far, because it contains elements of stuff that I should like. It's got like kind of board gamey elements. It looks like it's going to have, some interesting combat in it possibly as well. But I'm not sure on this one yet. Like, I don't know if I like the art style, and I'm not sure if it's just that's put me off. But I will remain interested until it comes out at least. But it sees you as even trying to save your sister odd with your pal Dicey.
Who is an actual dice.
Who is an actual dice.
Yes.
Who seem to be able to throw at stuff and stuff.
Yeah.
But
And in other completely unsurprising news, guess what? They're going to be doing more Apex Legends.
Yeah, there's another character in there. So, okay.
New season, good. August 3rd. I'm sure it's got its usual stuff. A new legend called Seer.
Yeah, and like we talked about, like what we would have liked to have seen out of here as well. Like there was a few EA studios that seem to have gone a bit quiet in recent years. The main one I'm thinking of there is PopCap. What are they doing? Like where's all my little puzzle games and stuff?
I don't know. Not my fault.
Yeah, Peggle 3, please.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure. I think they're kind of maxed out on what can be done, really. But hey, there we go.
UIP then, but
Yes. And the last thing they talked about was Knockout City. I believe it is Knockout City Season 2. And apparently it's fight at the movies. So you're going to go be fighting in maps that have got cinema-type stuff to do, I guess.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people sing the praises of Knockout City. It does look like I was going to say baseball, but it's not baseball. It's bloody dodgeball type inspired third person shooter type thing.
Yep.
Looks kind of fun. Could be good, but again, competitive online shooter type thing. Nah.
Mm-hmm. It is all about. It's basically a fighting your way for dodgeball dominance. That's right. Why not? So there we go. I think that's about it. The
other thing I was going to mention quickly, which I will just mention as we go in passing, is the fact that Sony announced today that you can get internal hard drives for the PS5.
Oh, you can now bring your own super sexy drive.
Oh, yes. But they do say that they won't work quite as well as the natural internal SSD. They won't run quite as fast as that, basically.
I mean, they're still going to be ruddy fast.
Yeah. I mean, I've got an external SSD on my PS5 at the moment, so...
Yeah, I mean, these use the kind of the direct interface to the CPU still. It's just that they probably have to pass through another bit of hardware before they get there. But although it sounds like the Xbox memory modules have superior performance in terms of bandwidth, They are going to be. The
Xbox
point. Ones are considerably more expensive than. Essentially, I believe you can just buy an M2 NVMe drive, is what you're looking for, to go in your PlayStation 5, and that will still be ruddy fast, and it will cost about half as much as the equivalent Xbox module.
Yes, but apparently someone was saying, and I haven't really read up on this, and you'll probably be able to read up on this a bit more and see exactly what's going on. Apparently, you need to install your own heatsink as well at the same time.
Oh, interesting.
So that sounds a bit weird.
You don't need to do that on PCs. I've got like a PCIe 4 SSD.
PS5 is not a PC then.
No,
I mean,
but
it kind of
is.
It
still generates. It generates an absolute arse ton of heat. I can tell you how hot my super sexy drive is right now, if you want. Ooh, can I have a drum roll, please? Future Coleman. Ooh. It's still going. All right, board. Anyway, I'll give you the exciting update on how hot my super sexy drive is. All right, for example, my super sexy drive is currently at 68 degrees.
Wowzers.
See?
That's more degrees than you've got, Dan.
It is more degrees than I have, which is saying something. So, look, hey, it may well be that the ventilation where it is in PS5 isn't that great, which is why it needs heatsink. So,
yeah.
Boom.
But it did seem like a complicated set of instructions. I'm like, oh, well, you just made the easy hard drive much harder.
Do you want me to read up on it ahead of next week, Tim, so I can tell you?
Yes, please. That's your homework for next week, Dan.
Well,
Thank you.
for next week, there won't be a next week, will there, of course? Because we're having a week off.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be the week after that. Deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll miss us terribly, but, we just need a break, okay?
We just had to go.
We just need a break.
I was going to have a full week to play the Ascent, Dan, and ruined it for me.
It's all right. My work here is done. But we really ought to think about wrapping up the show since we're running a little longer than I anticipated. So, first of all, Timothy, anything more about the Great Ormond Street goodness, other than just to remind people that there is Great Ormond Street goodness?
No, I hope to have some more interesting news in the next couple of weeks, although obviously with us being off next week, that might have to wait for a couple of weeks now. But yeah, just to mention... basically, Geek Out for Gosh is a campaign to raise money for Great Ormond Street Hospital. You can do so by streaming gaming and raising money by encouraging other people to sponsor you, or you can just sponsor someone else that's doing it. If you raise £250, you can get an exclusive insert coin, badge, and t-shirt. I should say pin rather than badge, because pins are better than badges, as everyone knows. But then, if you want more details, look at Geek Out for Gosh #4 on Twitter, or go to Gosh's website, which is gosh.org, and search for Geek Out for Gosh or Geek Out Gosh.
Yes, there we go. And Tim, I've got a quick question for you, sir.
Quick question.
And this is via joke sound on our Discord.
Okay.
What is the first game you remember buying that was actually actively bad?
Ooh.
You looked at it and went, man, that's bad.
I bought
that's a bad game.
That was bad. See, I had some Atari 2600 games that I didn't buy but had access to that weren't great.
Mm-hmm. All right, chuck one lemon.
But I don't think that counts because I didn't actually buy them and didn't buy them with my money. I'm trying to think of something I bought and was disappointed. I was pretty careful with the games that I bought back in the day,
Yeah.
Like, especially originally. I'm trying to think I got a game with my Genesis back in the day that wasn't great, but I can't remember what that was.
I remember being very disappointed by a light gun for my Amstrad 464, and I distinctly remember Operation Wolf on the 464 being a bit rough.
Oh, I remember Street Fighter 2 being crap on the Amiga.
Yes, it was even worse on the C64 apparently.
Actually, I think I had a demo of that, and the demo was so bad I never bought the game, despite how much I like Street Fighter, because I was like, this isn't Street Fighter. No.
Yep.
So that doesn't answer that. Oh, there was a game I bought on like a market stall for the Amiga.
Well, first of all, there's your problem.
Yeah, there's the problem.
There's your problem.
And it was a kind of... It wasn't so much a platform game, but there was some exploration to it.
Is this why you hate platform games?
Possibly.
There we go.
No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was a platformer, but it had some sort of exploration of the environment. But I don't think you were jumping around it. But yeah, that was bad.
Fun though this story is, Tim.
Yeah, I can't remember. I was trying to remember the name of the game.
I mean, let's be honest.
This
could go on for hours.
Yes. Well, you surprised me with a question that you said was a quick question. That's not necessarily a quick question.
For most people, it's a quick question, but I forget I'm talking to you. Right, anyway, so we are pretty much done. I just want to give a big, massive thank you to Don Skiffle, who was kind enough to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, who says that if you're looking for a chilled, down-to-earth podcast with a cracking sense of humour, I mean, I'm so sorry if you think we're funny, then look no further. Honest chats and thoughts of video games and gaming news wrapped into a tortilla of easy listening gaming goodness.
That's really nice. It's like Pals at the Pub was the name of that review as well. That's nice.
Exactly.
Thanks, Dons.
It's nice. And I hope we're one of those soft, floury tortillas rather than those ones that are really crispy and too hard. Don't like them.
I like the fact that he says, then look no further. It's like, look no further because you might find something better than this.
Yeah, please don't. And
Just
we encourage you.
Right here.
We encourage you, if you enjoy today's show, don't listen to anything else ever again, just in case.
Yeah, just in case it makes us seem worse than we actually are.
Absolutely.
Which is terrible.
Absolutely.
So.
But we got to think about going, but not before I remind you to head on over to www.BigRedBarel.com or twitter.com/BigRedBarel, facebook.com/BigRedBarel. And if you are kind enough to trundle on over to our webpage, make sure to click on the Discord link, because we like welcoming new people in there. We play games, we hang out, fun times are had. There is genuine bants. All right?
Bants, you say?
Bants is abound in there. So do come along and say hello. So that's your lot, ladies and gents. Thanks ever so much for listening. We are taking a week off next week because we need a week off, and we're going to have a week off. All right?
Yeah. That's how it works.
So we'll be back week after next with episode 453. But until that time, it's just falls to me to remind you that I have been Dan.
And I might have been Tim.
And no one's been Coleman. Well, apart from Coleman. Coleman's still Coleman. He's just not here to be Coleman. It's all very confusing. Yeah.
If he's a spy, is he still Coleman?
Well, he might be. I don't know.
He might be under an alias.
Schrodinger's Coleman. No one knows. If,
Skullman.
Yeah. If a Coleman farts in a forest and no one's there to see him, has he really farted?
Yes. Because you said he farted, therefore he's farted. That's how it works. No?
All right, okay, well, let's stop this now. Right now. All right, so thank you ever so much for listening. And until next time, dear listeners, toodle bye.
Your ears are quite welcome
for the podcasting goodness that you just heard.
Why not roll on over
to BigRedBarel.com
for more podcasts,
news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarel.com.
F1 Ultimate Team.
Or fit.
That's
what I like to call it. For fot. Fot. Yes, so the big change, gameplay-wise, from this year